good afternoon, everyone. His Eminence Professor Samdhong Rinpoche, Geshe Tsewangla, principals, teachers, and my dear students. This is indeed a huge honor, privilege, and above all, we are truly blessed and fortunate today to have His Eminence Professor Samdhong Rinpoche with us. His Eminence, as most of you already know, that is a great scholar and a practitioner. And His Eminence has also served as the former Prime Minister for Tibetan government in exile. But not many of us really know that His Eminence is a great educationist. Somebody who has worked extensively in the field of education, and his knowledge and wisdom and experience in the field of education is truly unparalleled. His Eminence has worked in various capacities as a teacher, as a principal, as a director at various schools and universities across India. Rinpoche has worked extensively with great stalwarts of Indian education like Jiddu Krishnamurti ji and Professor Dharampal ji. We are extremely grateful to His Eminence for graciously accepting to speak on the topic, the purpose and meaning of education. When we think of the true meaning and purpose of education, we often find ourselves lacking in so many ways in the current conventional modern education setup, where the discourse is mostly around career, mostly around competition, where we are imposing, most of the times we are imposing information on students, not giving them the opportunity to learn by themselves. We never think of producing human beings with compassion and human values. To understand what exactly is the purpose and the meaning of education, there is no better person than His Eminence Samdhong Rinpoche to put this into perspective for all of us. So, before I request His Eminence Samdhong Rinpoche to begin the talk, I would just give you a sense of today's format, how it's going to work. Rinpoche will talk on this topic for about an hour, and then we'll have a question and answer session for another hour. So be prepared with your questions, and I'll request all of you to keep your questions short and articulated so that everybody gets the opportunity, right? Thank you so much. So, without wasting any further time, without any further ado, I would request His Eminence Samdhong Rinpoche to please begin the talk.
Gathering, the venerable monks, nuns, learned principals and headmasters or teachers, dear children, I am happy to be with you this afternoon in a place in Himalaya region. The people have a very close relationship with the Tibetan people, Tibetan cultural and spiritual heritage. We are using the same language. It's based on 34 characters of letters come out of ancient Indian great language, the Sanskrit. Although we have a quite different colloquial language, the spoken language, due to which I am not able to communicate with you directly. in Ladakhi dialect. We have to borrow some foreign language to establish a communication between us. In the postmodern civilization, 21st century, the world become rather so small or too big in both sides. And sense that many new technologies which helps us in communicating with each other. I have been asked to talk about the meaning and purpose of education. Many students or educationists might have felt that this is not new thing. The meaning and the purpose of education is not to everyone. Whosoever is getting education or giving education, they are aware of this. In one way, that's true. The meaning and the purpose of education in ordinary sense, it is well known to everyone. This is not to discuss or elaborate. If you are not aware of this meaning and purpose of education, you may not have indulged into the imparting education for years and years as teacher or learning for years and years as student. So it's taken for granted that everyone knows about it. But indeed, through the passage of time, the meaning, the purpose, and the method all silently changed. Some changes are visible, many other changes are invisible. It went through unnoticed from year to year. From centenary to centenary. And today we have a very well structured education system. And also, in another sense, the education is universalized and everyone has the right to get it. Many countries are going through certain stage of education compulsory by law. So in such circumstances, what is the use of discussing once again the meaning and the purpose of education? But as a matter of fact, the education in the ancient time used to be, the meaning and the purpose both used to be to awaken the human inner consciousness so that the human values can be preserved without any external force. Keeping order is from the moral strength, not by law or law-keeping force. And the education is the basic instrument to arising the human consciousness at a level of awareness and having the right view. Through that right view, the order of society, order of humanity are automatically maintained. But today, the things are very much changed. And the education is unable to make the educated human beings as a perfect human being. Here I mean perfect human being means to understand oneself and to understand the rest of the other sentient beings. And by understanding, to respect every sentient beings as equal. Not only equal, they are very closely interdependent and interrelated. So therefore, violence has no place in the community of living creatures. We are supposed to be helping each other, understanding each other, and at least to refrain from harming to anyone. So this mental attitude is ever decreasing during the past several thousand years, and particularly during last 250 years. The change has been speedy up, and such change which took place during last 250 years, if we compare with before that, several thousand years have not seen such a drastic change. The change has two viewpoints. Majority of the humanity think that this change was an evolution, development, better one. In many fields it might be better one, but in reality the inner human quality is being much deteriorated. There was a growth, but there had not been much development apart from the ever-increasing growth of material facilities, technology, or science, but the inner human quality has been gradually but drastically deteriorated, and today we are facing enormous challenges, and all of these challenges are human creation, not a natural disaster. Of course, we have enormous natural disasters these days. Since yesterday, many Indian coastal areas are facing cyclone. All these natural disasters are also, as a matter of fact, human creation, human made, due to degradation of the environment and our deterioration with the cohesive relationship with nature. So all this degradation and ever-increasing challenges and problems any sensible person cannot ignore. The survival of all living beings on this planet Earth is now threatened. According to the environmental scientists, if we do not do anything drastically right now, it's even late. Coming 100 years or even coming 50 years is very dangerous. By the end of this 21st century, the planet Earth may not be livable for any living creature, not speak of only human beings. Therefore, the time has come to revisit or review the quality, the meaning, the purpose of so-called education. So that's why now people are thinking about and talking about. I would like to quote two great personalities about their view in the present education system. Mahatma Gandhi had said in 1909, when he wrote the great book Hindu Swaraj, he had mentioned that the present education system only inculcates the preservation and promotion of the body, and it has nothing to do with the preservation and promotion of the mind. Therefore, the educated people are grown something mindless people. So this was in a short conclusion of what he had sung. At that time, the modern education progressed in India progressively only for about 70, 80 years, even not 100 years. The education system change is brought in India in the beginning of 1840s after the visit of Macaulay and his recommendations in the British Parliament. Everybody knows about it. By that time, the meaning and the purpose of education was completely changed. The other is the occurrence of the 14th, His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama. He has summed up that the modern education system is able to educate the brain, but it is not able to educate the heart. And the divorce between brain and heart brought the disorder with which we are facing today. So therefore, we shall have to rethink when we talk about the meaning and purpose of education, the imparting the knowledge for around 16-20 years of time as school education, higher education, post-graduation, doctorate and so on and so forth. Almost half of a person's life is being spent in getting education. But during which period, what kind of fundamental transformation is able to achieve by the person who has spending this much time to getting education at the highest level. Of course, this is a great investment of life, and we must review and evaluate whether this time has not been wasted or it was really useful for enrichment and awakening of the human inner intelligence. That's very necessary. Why this kind of thing happening in this world? Largely we can say the modernity. Modernity and modernization is a vocabulary belonging to a Western world, and the change was also started from Western world. So which have reversed many things in human life. Our priorities have been greatly changed, that we shall have to notice. In the ancient, we used to live or abide by a traditional civilization, and thereafter, during last 2.5 centuries, this traditional civilization has been replaced by the modern, I don't want to say it is civilization, but it is the vocabulary people use. As a matter of fact, it is an uncivilized way of life, but we call it modern civilization. And then that was followed by ultra-modern civilization, and now we are proudly think they are living in the post-modern civilization. In the traditional civilization, the human beings are used to be user of natural resources, and which have been completely changed. Now human beings are no more user, we are consumer. Human beings have become consumer. Unless and until you become a good consumer, you are not a perfect person, not good for the society. Because science and technology have given the empowerment to humanity to produce the necessary things, so-called necessary things, or in which we used to, in the past, as user, produce much more than our need. In the traditional society, the humanity is able to produce the commodities to satisfy everyone's need, and no more is being misused. We only do upayog in our own language. Today we are not making upayog, but upabhog. We are upabhogi. So that has completely destroyed the balance and harmonious relationship with the nature from which all the natural resources are coming out. And that lead to the environment disaster, increase of many unknown diseases, incurable diseases, and each time natural calamity which has caused many human lives, as you know, day in and day out. And similarly, the self and the others, in the ancient, the others are considered to be more important, if not more important, equal. Equality of all living beings, or all sentient beings, is basic view of the human beings. But today, the self is much important than the others. And similarly, the right and duties. In the traditional society, there is not much talk about rights. They only talk about responsibilities and duties. If you perform your own responsibility perfectly, there is no way to deprive of your any right. The rights are automatically secured by the performance of your own responsibility, particularly the universal responsibility a human being has. But today, the people talk about rights only. The so-called United Nations has a declaration of universal human rights. But there is no declaration universal human responsibility or human duty. The World Parliament of Religions has tried to develop a document which might be subsequently declared as a Universal Declaration of Human Responsibility or Human Duty. I remember it was 1980s in Chicago. A committee was set up to draft a declaration of human responsibility. After 2-3 days deliberation, we were not able to make any draft because in that no consensus was available. Everyone differently interprets what are the basic human responsibilities. But as far as rights are concerned, they are already very much apparent to everyone. So this is a few symbols which I am submitting before you for your consideration. So therefore, we shall have to be re-examine, revisit, or we understand the meaning of education perfectly, or we also understood and also implementing the purpose of education as we should think. To make my presentation short, I brought some documents in which Our view means those people who are in support of the traditional way of thinking and traditional way of defining the meaning and the purpose of education. I use the word tradition. I think I need to define what I mean. Many people misunderstood that anything which is in usage or habit or system or custom perpetuating for a long time become a tradition. That is not a tradition. Tradition, when I refer to tradition, there need to be three components: a philosophy or a principle or a kind of system which originated from an authentic source. Authentic source means, if I use the Western vocabulary, divine source or ultimate source. When we talk about Buddhist tradition, for example, any Buddhist tradition must be originated from Buddha himself. Anything which are come up after Buddha's parinirvana, then that will not make a Buddhist tradition. It has its own originating source from Buddha himself. And similarly with any other tradition, the tradition must be originated from the founder of the philosophy or religious tradition. The second component is coming down through unbroken lineage. Buddha taught Ananda, and Ananda taught someone to my teacher. For example, in the Buddhist, our bhikkhu ordination, we have all list from Buddha to my abbot, who have given to their ordination. The same way the teaching comes down, the lineage should be available. And thirdly, and more important, is logically verifiable. Buddha has said his disciples must not accept his words because they have devotion or faith into the Buddha. They must examine, as a goldsmith examines the gold. You must examine my words through logic, rationality, and common sense. With thorough examination, you find it's true. Only then you should accept. So that is the definition of tradition. Now, in the Western world, the conflict or the confrontation is between the tradition and the modernity. The tradition needs a reliable source, logically verifiable, and a lineage unbroken. So all these three is there, then that can be considered as tradition. So I was talking about the traditional people, how the traditional people look to education and how the modern people are looking to the many Indian purpose of education, so that differentiation we shall have to be understood. In India, as you all know, after the Western education imposed in India, which completely wipe out the traditional education system, thereafter many great efforts have been made that should have to be taken note of, and why they are not succeed at national level. They did succeed for many individuals and many localities, but it could not completely transform the education system of India, particularly after the independence of India. Pre-independence India, the efforts such as Arya Samaj movement, which took interest in education and also doing great work. Swami Dayananda and Swami Vivekananda and many other sage and saints contributed to that. And another effort is notable is Sri Aurobindo Ghosh. Sri Aurobindo Ghosh was a great philosopher, and his philosophy apparently, of course, is a non-Buddhist philosophical tradition. But today, in the world, Aurobindo philosophy is studied by very few people. I know only 2 or 3 persons in India who have deeply studied Aurobindo philosophy. And his philosophy is very near to the Buddhist philosophy of Kalchakra. Kalchakra Tantra has a unique philosophy, and that's very near to Aurobindo philosophy. And he has started, with help of mother, many educational institutions, schools, and he also thought about the danger of modern educational system, and he was trying to inculcate a different way of educating the people. Rabindranath Tagore, in his own way, make a very beautiful system of education, but it remained only within the Shantiniketan campus. And now the Shantiniketan campus, I used to be a part of that in 70s and 80s, their study boards. And now that has become completely modern, mainstream higher education university. There's no difference now so left. And on the top of that, Gandhi himself tried to evolve a very unique education system, which is termed as Navtalim. He is in favor of Hindustani, not Katra Hindi or Urdu. So he is in Hindustani, he termed it as Navtalim. The history of evolving Navtalim as a very touching story, how Gandhi need to think about the education. In the ashram, he used to live with his lifetime assistant or secretary, Mahadevendra Sahib, and his son, Narayan Bhai, who passed only a few years before. Narayan Bhai, in the childhood, he used to play with the Gandhi and spend a lot of time with the Gandhi. And about 9-10 years, one day he refused to go to school. He finds something unacceptable in the behavior of the children, teacher, and particularly the system, the curriculum, and the way of imparting. He refused to go to school. Then his father, Mahadevin, tried to persuade to send him to school, and he said no. Then he said, if you don't go to school, you should tell Babuji, otherwise he would be unhappy. So then Narayan said, you tell him. He said, no, if you are not willing to go to him, you write a letter to him, I will carry it. So Narayan wrote a long letter why he is refusing to go to school. And that letter gave to Gandhiji by Mahadevin, and he asked Gandhiji to tell Narayan to go to school. He should advise. So Gandhi read that letter very carefully and thought for some time, and then he took out his pen and wrote on the top of the letter, Shabash. And that sent back to Narayan Bhai Desai. And I heard this story from himself, and he used to make in the letter his life, the Gandhi Katha. Beautifully for 6 days, 7 days, Gandhi's story is being given to the, just like Ram Katha or Krishna Katha. Then Mahadevi asked Gandhi, then what to do? Then he said, we shall have to think a suitable education system. And Gandhi visit Shantiniketan, and Rabindranath Tagore and Gandhi has a very intimate relationship, and they used to discuss many things. And then Gandhi told him that he wanted to develop a basic education system is suitable for Indian people. Then there was Aryanayakam, a Sri Lankan person working with the Shantiniketan as an educationist. And he, of course, from Sri Lanka, Buddhist background, and Aryanayakam was given to Gandhi and lived to the ashram. And with Asha Devi and many other people, developed the system of Navadali in great detail. And a number of schools were also set up at that time with the system of Navadali. Of course, the modern education is shaped and governed by the economic system. Economic system and education system has should not have any link, but in the present day there is a great link. Therefore, Aryanayakam thought that Gandhi's education system must be interlinked with Gandhi's thought of economy. And Schumacher was a great economist, and he studied the Gandhi's thoughts. And then later on he wrote the famous book, now not famous, nobody reads it. The small is beautiful. The small is beautiful is Gandhi's way of economy, how it can be developed at national wide. So these two coming together, small is beautiful and North Island system. Now that is almost completely disappeared from India. No one is emeritus of the North Island system. There are few schools remained, but they are not able to find suitable teachers to run the system of North Island. So, to understand the meaning and the purpose of education, we need to have a complete historical picture before us. Pre-1830, what kind of education system prevailed in India? And after 1840, introduction of the English education system, how it had been completely wiped off the traditional systems. Acharya Dharmapalji, after great effort of research in London, he wrote the details of the destruction of ancient Indian education system after the 1940s. That book is called The Beautiful Tree. The book is entitled as A Beautiful Tree because Gandhi had given a statement when he was interacting with the media. The ancient Indian education system was like a beautiful tree. So many other people has disagreed. There was nothing such a system was existed in before 1830s. So to prove the existence of beautiful tree, the Dharmapalji wrote that beautiful tree, and he has written many other books as well. Since here are many educators, principals and teachers, I presume all of you must be aware of all these happenings, but if someone does not have the information, I take this opportunity to request you to read Gandhi's view on the education. I do not say you must be agreed or follow the Gandhi's views. You may reject it, or you may partially disagree to it. But what I am saying is forgetting Gandhi completely without knowing him, without knowing what he had said, without knowing what he had done. This is a great tragedy for Indian people and injustice to Gandhi as well. Indian people must read at least 3 Gandhi's books. One is Hindu Swaraj. I consider Hindu Swaraj is one of the root texts of Gandhi's idea. And the other is his autobiography that many people do read, My Experiments with Truth. To reading carefully, that book is more important. And the third is Mere Sapnon Ki Bharat. Mere Sapnon Ki Bharat, what a Swaraj Bharat would be, and which will be complete. Then Dharmapalji books, particularly some of the, particularly the book, The Beautiful Tree. And then the question between tradition and modernity, that is relating to the sociology as well as education, as well as economy and many things. So in that matter, unknown person, I don't know, most of them might have not heard the name, Professor A.K. Saran. Professor A.K. Saran passed away sometime in the year 2010 or 2015, quite recent. And he wrote a number of books and no one has published them because he was a great critic of modernity. And his basic book was The Traditional Thought, which was published by the Sarnath Institute. His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama has given an extensive forward to that book. The Traditional Thought, which gives the difference between tradition and the modernity. And if you go back to the background, Kumaraswamy, a scholar from Sri Lanka, basically he used to be an archaeologist and later on he became a philosopher. And he had written also many books on the education and on the tradition. The entire work of Professor A.K. Saran was published by Sarnath Institute, and these are available now in the market. So, if someone really seriously look into the meaning and purpose of the education, we shall have to understand the contrast between the tradition and the modernity. And only then we will be able to understand what are the differences. So having said that, I will read out some passages which sum up the idea of meaning and the purpose of education in accordance with the traditional thought or traditional way of looking at things. By speaking, it may become more lengthy, and to read it out is education is to be recognized as a human quality that enables understanding of external objects and phenomena, and that leads to the awakening, maturing, and completion of the potential of the inner consciousness. Education is to be recognized as a human quality, not imposed or not conditioning. It is a basic human quality that enables the understanding of external objects and phenomena, because human beings are very closely related with the external objects. Awakening and nurturing, the completion of the potential of inner consciousness. Human consciousness has unlimited potential, which we are able to use a very small segment of it. And if we are really awakened through education, our capacity is immense. We can achieve in the Buddha nature. Education is not to be recognized as merely grasping what is heard from others. Instead, it is to be recognized as realization of what is heard through the power of self-confirmation and actualization of what is realized through persistence contemplation. It is thus a process of learning through hearing from others, self-investigation, and persistence contemplation. That relates more to the process of education. The modern education stops at the stage of hearing. Either teacher told student or student reads from book. Information is accumulated or input rather to the mind of student, and that stops there. Students know it or unknow it, but the student shall have to accept whatever is said by the teacher or whatever is written in the textbook. Because in the examination, he or she shall have to reproduce whatever is being told or whatever is written. But the traditional way of educating is the hearing of information is the preliminary stage. And that knowledge is called Shrutimaya Gyan in Sanskrit. Shrutimaya Gyan means Tujung Vishra. Just heard it and then they give us information. Then after that information shall have to be analyzed through logic, reasoning, examination, inquiry for a long time. After that, the student himself, herself will get a result or conclusion, finding of the thing. And then that shall have to be persistent complementation, and then it will get the enlightened or internalization. So then that means the person knows it. Education is to be recognized as a unique inner quality in which the discriminative wisdom and mind-pacifying technique are conjoined into close partnership. Sharp analytical examination and at the same time stabilizing and pacifying the mind, which two different activities can go together in partnership. That is the meaning of education. Education is to be recognized as a key inner technology that transforms social and personal actions into wholesome deeds. Social and personal deeds, voluntarily or thoughtfully or unthoughtfully, whatever it may be, it can be transformed into a wholesome deeds, good deeds. So that means a person is educated. Education is not to be recognized merely as means of livelihood. That's a difficult thing these days. The today's social economic system, education is considered to be only for the sake of livelihood. And now the evaluation of higher education institutions, universities, we have set up NAC, and the NAC has now borrowed many techniques from Western, and they evaluating the institutions, how much alumni are getting jobs. But instead, it's to be recognized as a means of achieving temporary as well as long-term welfare for the self and the others. In particular, it is to be recognized as, for vehicle of social welfare and service. Education is about recognizing the undesired suffering and eliminating its cause, and recognizing the desired happiness and engaging in a practice of its cause. It is thus to be recognized as means towards engaging in desirable actions and avoiding undesirable actions. These are the very few sum-ups of the many of education. Then for the purpose of education, the general purpose of education is to awaken and develop the human qualities of wisdom, loving-kindness, and compassion. Wisdom, loving-kindness, and compassion, these three are basic human value or human qualities. Each human individual has potential of these three great emotions, but they shall have to be awakened, aroused, stimulated. Thereby, the virtues of right view and right conduct, and the art of creativity and innovation. Creativity and innovation, everything must come out of love and compassion. Any creation and innovation which come out of human greed, desire, hate, all these sources, then the art or creativity or innovation has no value, or it automatically goes to the violent side. So any creativity come out of the loving kindness, and that bound to be non-violent and beneficial to everyone. To refine human perceptions and sensitivities, and to initiate independent and valid investigation into a phenomenal and ethical spheres, thus enabling the accomplishment of personal, national, and universal values or goals. To empower people and nation to become self-reliant, that is, without the need to depend on the assistance and support of others, and to generate patriotic and dedicated persons and other resources for achieving the cherished goals of the society and nation. So these are the few basic things, the purpose of education. Purpose of education must not be only to earn a livelihood by an individual. Then to sum up, to conclude my presentation, I would mention the objective or aims of the education, which is not mentioned here, but it is related. The traditional people consider there should be 4 objectives or aims for any education process. The first is freedom, freedom of mind and freedom of thought, freedom of speech. The second is altruism, to serve others. The third is upholding of heritage. Heritage may be cultural, may be traditional, may be natural resources. And the fourth is innovation or creativity. So these four are basically the. Then we talk about the freedom. There are a number of freedoms. Students must be enabled to fully awaken their discriminative faculty of mind and to be able to distinguish right from wrong. This would empower them to be competent to make decisions with freedom of thought and action, to be self-reliant in livelihood, thus to live without depending on or exploiting others, thereby ensuring the freedom of livelihood, freedom of conscience, freedom of livelihood, and by livelihood by right means, right livelihood we call it, to be able to protect the freedom of individual and community by non-violence, thereby ensuring the freedom of security of a nation, of a country. This constitutes the principles of freedom. By embracing other beings are more precious than the self, and the sacrificing the self for the service and welfare of the other person, the noble spirit of altruism is to be generated and established. This constitutes the principle of altruism, to establish this mindset in the students. And for the sake of future generation, the environment and natural resources must be conserved for the peaceful substance of this planet, and the people must be empowered to uphold their ancestral cultural heritage or spiritual heritage. This ability to preserve the culture and the environment constitutes the principle of upholding the heritage. And then the last is change or innovation. In relation to the general well-being of the world and the accordance with the needs of time and place, we must be able to introduce new principles, systems, objects, movements, or creativities, and so forth. This constitutes the principle of innovation or bringing change into the ongoing systems. So, by these few things, I think the basic idea of many of education and the purpose of education as envisaged and keeping in mind of the traditional people. I do not say in conclusion that everything tradition is good or everything modernity is bad. I am not saying blanketly, nor I am recommending everyone there must be a traditional person and there should be preserve any kind of tradition. What I am saying is the human inner intelligence of one's own originality. Some other times I used to use the word original mind. Today, the education process is filled to awaken the originality of the human mind, and it's always conditioned, and the people, students are made to accept without knowing. Knowing and acceptance must be separated, and for some time you might be accept. Of course, for the examination purpose, we have to accept what it was written in the book. But As Buddha has said, you must examine and find out the reality through one's own wisdom and discriminative power of mind. So I always repeat the Krishnamurti's word. The basic purpose of education is to awakening the human inner intelligence in totality, in fullest, so that the person could be flower in goodness automatically. In goodness cannot be imposed from outside. Goodness must come. The values and right views and right thoughts and right action must come from the within, and that is original. For that, we must be able to touch to the source of the subtlest human consciousness and human intelligence that can be awakened, stimulated, and developed, growth. So I think that is the real meaning and also purpose of the education. Thank you very much for your attention.
Actually, I have two questions. My first question is, what is the difference between today's education and early education? And second question is education only for the young? What do people learn when they are older?
The two questions, both are compulsory or optional? Difference between education of today and you have said earlier, I presume that is the ancient Indian education system. That difference was, I was trying to talk about the difference right from the beginning, and my Nandi presentation was mostly all about that difference. You have not paying attention to my statements earlier. I have summed up the difference referring to two great persons, the Gandhi and His Holiness. Gandhi have said the ancient education take care of body and mind both, and the modern education or present education takes only care of body, neglecting the mind together. That is symbolically speaking. And His Holiness have said the ancient education take care of brain and heart together. And the present education is only educating the brain, neglecting the heart. The warm-heartedness, compassionate mind is being neglected. So I think the difference way of imparting education in the ancient, they consider the human individual, the strand, as a whole, not impartial. So that's why many people today use the word holistic education. Holistic education means education of mind, education of body, education of consciousness and subtlest consciousness. So all should go together. And that is shortly difference between the early education. Then of course education is not only for younger generation. Tradition as well as modernity, we divide into two categories: formal education and informal education. Formal institutionalized education from primary school to a postdoctorate. These are graduations and specific subjects or topics and specific time. Therefore, the formalized education is basically for the younger generation, because the old ones cannot attend classes and all these things. Although I read in the newspapers some 86-year-old in Bihar have attended examination for matriculation and he passed. So this kind of things comes. Even the formal education is exclusively for the younger generation alone. But education as process of learning has no age limit, old or young, everyone. According to Buddhist viewpoint, we have to learn until we achieve Buddha nature. So that means eons and eons, 3 uncountable eons, we have to continue to learn, continue to get education until we get the omniscient. So therefore, there's no age limit or no time frame. So education is for all people until some get the enlightenment of Buddha nature.
Just one simple question. As a educator who's working for education, just recently I observed one thing in parents, that there are several young parents who exactly know what their child is to become, how they should behave, how they should conduct themselves, exactly what they want them to become once they grow up. So this kind of care or this kind of awareness, is it a good thing or a bad thing, Your Eminence? Like, because they want, before the baby has come, they know what they're going to become.
Difficult question. It has many different ways of looking at it, and also different viewpoints. I have no answer, specific answer, which I can give you with full confidence, because I know many different ways of looking at it. The one viewpoint which is shared by many great scholars is that the potential of an individual young student is a kind of, it comes with by birth, biologically, or inheritance. Inheritance is not a good word, but a particular potential to becoming a businessman or leader or an artist or scholar or educator. What kind of basic development at the end of the life, at the end of the education, is neither to be curated, inculcated, or imposed. That shall have to be, the seed is already shall have to be in the individual. And parents and teachers' job is to give assistance or to awakening of that seed, giving appropriate environment and causality. So this is one viewpoint. And who are having this viewpoint, they very much strongly recommend the teacher or parent should respect that potential, that capacity, and we should not try to change it, or we should not try to put some other objective to the children, and whatever he or she has originally, that need to be recognized, number one, and that need to be nurtured and helped. This is one viewpoint. The other viewpoint is that each human individual has countless potentials. There are not only one potential. So teacher and parents can examine any other way of opening which may not be unsuitable to the children. Then you can suggest, you can inculcate interest and potential, and the parents and teachers have the right or have the ability to choose the objective of the children, what he or she will become after educating, and that can be suggested and then can be imposed. Not imposed, but suggested and help to develop to that. So human potential is not limited to one. But these both viewpoints are, I don't think, the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is, if we look from the Buddhist viewpoint, the predetermination of the individual receiving education, the potential or the possibilities are come with that student through karmic force. And therefore, the responsibility of children, the parents and teacher is to find out what it is, and then that alone shall have to be nurtured and helped. So that I think I leave the wisdom of the teachers. They should think what is a more appropriate view.
If moral education is so important, then why it isn't included in the school curriculum?
The basic purpose of the education is to produce human individuals who have high moral character and respecting his own values. But the different viewpoints is either moral education should be one specific subject to be added into the syllabi of the school, or there's no need to make a separate subject as moral education, which can also go through examination, so on and so forth. There are two different viewpoints are prevailing these days. I am on the side of the second one. Each education, whether you are teaching mathematics, science, or geography, or whatever it may be, that should be able to impart morality into you. And moral education should not be a separate subject. This is one viewpoint. But many educationists says that that is not possible. How we can inculcate moral education through mathematics or through science and so on and so forth. Therefore, a moral education is need to be added to the syllabi. So these both viewpoints are, I think, valid, and we shall have to be experiment. Whatever is the matter, the UNESCO has recommended about moral education to be added in the education system due to they found that the whole education system prevailing in the world is unable to impart morality into the human mind. That is recognized. So therefore the need is very much established. So therefore now what people are doing is to add moral education as one of the subject, and through which the morality can be imparted at the same with other education. So for that His Holiness has given a new kind of innovation which he called secular ethics. Secular ethics is one way to impart the moral education to the students without referring to any religious tradition or any philosophical tradition, but as a social being. Now this subject is called C learning, social, emotional, ethical learning. The program was developed by the Emory University, in which His Holiness is also a professor of eminence. And they have developed this subject. And also in India, Ayugyanya is an NGO. They have developed this program to suitable for the Indian students, local Indian people, suitable to them. The Emory University is mostly developed to suit the American and Western Europe people. So all of these two program is a kind of ethical and moral education which demands one period in a week, and they give training to the teachers or facilitators, 3 days or 5 days training, through which this syllabus can be covered. And in our experience, by this experiment, there are visible improvement in the child's behavior, and not only child's behavior, even the teacher's behavior was much improved, which I have heard the reports. So, to answer to your question, moral education is necessary unless you are perfect in the morality. So you have some deficiency in the morality, then moral education is necessary. How to impart moral education through all the subjects or through a particular subject, that has two different viewpoints, and that need to be decided by teachers and students by themselves through experimentation, I think.
My name is Singh Tundu. Actually, I am teacher by profession. Your Eminence, I'm interested in knowing your thoughts on traditional education system, and specifically I'm curious to know what aspect of the traditional education system do you think is more beneficial and could be incorporated in the modern education system? Your Eminence, could you please share your thoughts on this topic?
Traditional education system is important and effective, that I have mentioned before my presentation. But now your question is how to continue the traditional education in present society. That is a little different question. The question is not relating to the system of education, but it is more or less in the organizational matters. So that we shall have to think over differently. In India, the traditional education system was, we may call it teacher-centered system. One teacher is evolved, qualified teacher, and then he or she settled down in a ashram or in place, and the students come into that teacher, and then the Gurukul system or ashram system, teacher-taught relationship. The teacher is not teaching for a salary. The students are not studying for a job. They are for the purpose of wisdom and knowledge. Teacher is for the purpose of spreading, promoting the knowledge and the vidya. And that kind of issue system is being run by the individuals and by the monasteries. And then Buddhist system is mostly prevailed in the monastic institutions. So this kind of institutionalized traditional education system to revive is more difficult. When then it is difficult or it is impossible, then what is use of talking about traditional system? So we shall have to think about how to include the traditional way of education into the modern education framework. Because to complete change, the framework includes the institutionalization of the work to be replaced by some traditional one is almost possible, almost impossible. So therefore we have to think how the traditional system of education can be included, or the modern education system of framework can be injected some of the traditional way of inculcating the education. These are to be think over and to be, otherwise we cannot say that we are going to preserve the traditional education alone. Then in that way it may be become a monastic institutions or some kind of Gurukul institutions which may not be survive or even help the present society. I remember one thing, when the Sarnath Institute was to be established, the then Jawaharlal Nehru, Prime Minister, and His Holiness has discussed, and they have set 4 basic objectives for the Sarnath Institute. And one of the objectives was to experiment to transform the traditional monastic system of education into the modern university framework. So keeping that in view, the Sarnath Institute did that experiment and we have succeeded. Now the traditional monastic way of education is perfectly fitting into the modern university structure framework, and this kind of institutions can be created, and even it is possible in the modern society and present day.
In today's world, many people use education as medium to make money, to earn money. So what is your wisdom or thought on this, Your Eminence?
That's why I am very afraid of money. When I saw the money around, I become very nervous. The wealth is termed in Tibetan language or Ladakh language both Nor, Nan or Nona Nor. That means wrong. So basically, by name, it is wrong. The basic tragedy in the modernity is everything become a source of money earning. I mentioned before also, it's such tragedy. Everything become industry. Everything become a kind of source to earn money, rightly or wrongly. Among them, education, health are most important ones. Then health care is become an industry. The objective of the daughters are not to make the society free from disease. They need disease so that their industry can go on by treatment. And even the medicines are produced in such a way, at many times they have to consume for the lifetime tablets. In the ancient time, the Vedas, the daughters, the healers, their first objective is to make the society free from disease. Preventive measures are more important than the curative measures. Then education is also becoming a money earning. The teachers imparting education is for the purpose of their salary, and they are not satisfied with the salary. They teach less in the class, more in the tuition, and then put some extra money for the need of tuition. And the students are also getting education by paying all this in order to get a good salary after the passing out. So I have mentioned in my pre-presentation also, education linked with the livelihood is a disrespect, most disrespect to the knowledge, to the wisdom, to the education. And it is only for the livelihood earning, then such long education may not be necessary. Any kind of vocation, easy vocation can earn the livelihood. So therefore, earning by imparting education, now even the spiritual things or religious things also come into the market. Recently, someone was telling to me that the mindfulness meditation has a good market these days in the West. So I was shocked by his sentence. It has a good market in the West, mindfulness meditation. So education, knowledge, health, these are being evaluated by cost, by value, and earning to that is not a right livelihood, I can say. It can be right livelihood when you do the things in the right way, in perfect way, and with all honesty, then it might be right. Of course, a teacher cannot survive a salary. But the mental attitude mental attitude should be, in a way, I am not teaching the student in order to justify my salary. I am teaching the students as a responsibility of teacher. And I have to take a salary because I have to spend the whole time to imparting education. Therefore, to sustain myself, it is the right way to get a salary, adequate salary, so that I have no worry to my livelihood, so that I can devote entire my attention and devotion time to the students. But this kind of attitude would be a right way. Otherwise, I am teaching them because I have to survive. For this purpose of my wage, I am teaching this kind of mental attitude. Then the full devotion and dedication to imparting education may not be able to sustain. So therefore, all these things depend on how you look at it from your mental disposition.
My name is Tanvi Zumba from Jamyang High School, studying in class 10. My question is that, what advice do you have for students who are struggling from negative emotions and finding their inner peace?
To solve this problem, the students can look into the teachings of C-learning or universal ethic education. Universal ethic education is from the Ayugyan Nyais, the NGO. You will find it on the website, on the net. And C-learning is also available on the net. Because it is a little elaborate, so I cannot give you details into the question-answer period. So I am only giving you the information. There are two available sources. One is Universal Ethic Education, prepared by Ayugyan Nyais, Merit in UP. And the other is C-learning. C-learning is available everywhere, which is developed by the Emory University. Of course, the main person who are doing it is Indian scholar. Dr. Rosanthen Singh Negi was the leader of that. So, in accordance with the students' teaching, they have developed. So, from these sources, you will not take much time. They are short courses, so you look into these courses, how to deal with the emotions. The basic way to confront with negative emotion, to reduce the negative emotion, and to develop positive emotions, that is not a very difficult thing. You must have a little watchfulness. Watchfulness means you should not be completely taken over by negative emotions unawarely. So you should keep and watch to your emotions all the time. That can be practiced by oneself. When you get up in the morning, you make a a kind of determination. Today I will watch my own mind, my own emotions, and I will not let the emotions without notice. And you repeat that determination after 1 hour, 2 hours, and in the day 3-4 times you repeat that, and you keep one day mindful, watching to your own emotions throughout the day. After 2-3 days you will become habitual to watch, and by that way you will realize that now some negative emotion is going to arise, and at that time then you will have at that time one thing you should take care of is at the time of arising and after the arising the negative emotion, you should stop acting or expressing. Vocal and bodily act should be stopped, at least for a few moments. And you have to look back to the emotion face to face directly. And the first thing you should do is to find out the cause. Why this negative emotion arises? There's no emotion which arises without any cause. The cause may be recognized, may not be recognized, but you try to recognize, then you will find the cause. The cause is almost majority of them false cause, misunderstanding, by misunderstanding or misgiving, whatever it may be. So you examine the cause, and then you find the cause is not an appropriate cause. Then the emotion can be automatically settled down or face without surrendering. So this is a traditional way. Whatever comes, you have to find the cause. Finding the cause that many times you yourself is involved into the cause, and by that way you shall have to eradicate the cause, and eradicating the cause, by eradicating the cause, the result, the emotion will disappear automatically. And in this kind of practice, if you are a student of higher classes, you can read some chapters of Buddhist Avatar. In the Buddhist Avatar, tackling emotions as methods of tackling emotions are given in great detail. So from those methods, you can take how to face the negative emotions and settle down or re-establish the peace of mind.
Samdhong Rinpoche, my question is, do you feel that the current way we are educating children fully prepares them for the needs of the 21st century?
I don't know. I am not a person who is living in the 21st century. I am still live in the 7th century civilization. So it is very difficult to say that the present education system is adequate to live or to face the 21st century. 21st century if we very closely look to the situations of 21st century, it appears to me that everyone is under the influence of some kind of intoxication. The inevitable challenges and dangers are roaming around, and we know about it, but still we are not aware of what we should do. Several years before, it might be 2017 or 2016, the United Nations, after long discussion, set up SDGs 16 or 17, Sustainable Development Goal, and all the world nations supposed to implement them in order to save the disaster of the planet Earth. And in spite of that decision, that awareness, not a single nation is serious about that. And for example, someone knows that this house is to be collapsed tomorrow or day after tomorrow, and that is inevitable, it will come. But still I am enjoying in that house without any preparation, without any sense of urgency. That means we are completely under some kind of influence of intoxication, and we are not able to see the challenges and dangers. So in that way, the present education is not adequate to face the problems and challenges of 21st century. In other words, His Holiness the Dalai Lama sometimes say a monk should be 21st century monk, a religious practitioner should be 21st religious practitioner. In that way, his intention and his many of these words are quite different. We are able to reach out to the 21st century people, and also we are able to know the goods and bads, the positive and negative, the strength and weakness, the challenge of 21st century. He means to that. But in that way, I personally do not think the present education system is adequate to give us a kind of consciousness, awareness of the dangers and challenges of 21st century.
A very good afternoon, Your Eminence. I am Zara Batul from Singh Public School. So my question is that, what is your opinion about online education?
Education is one of the advantages of the 21st century. The information revolution and technology to distance connectivity. One way it is good. I also sometimes engage in online talks and discussions, but I don't feel comfortable in their system. Human relationship needs some kind of nearness. In English language, it is usage, near and dear. The dear should be near, and long distance, seeing the face, but untouchable. Untouchable means different connotations as well. So, in the period of epidemic, during the COVID period, the online education or online discussions become useful and a substitute to a meeting with each other. In that way, it's good. But if your question is that online communication can replace or substitute fully with face-to-face communication. In that way, my opinion is it will not substitute the intimate meetings through this technology.
His Eminence, His Eminence, Professor Samdhong Rinpoche Kundun, during Samsik, ngata educator, Gergan Loptuk, New Millennium e hall bena ngata juxtiot, mas sote sotam cham sorarak. Kizuk ngata khaswang skizbuchan ngata atu during e ka juxte. Kung sung zabon ngata eka lenche se ngata skapstop kazuk daksa Rinpoche skundo ne kalo be kani ngata soma kenche se no yengara sambena dring ode na ngata takso te isang khaspaji mane juksemet gyagare na tene kongsok se khaspaji chokse top nendo Side Toknendo, ya Yontane Toknendo, Samsik Nyamyo Rinpoche Kundulla, in a Kora Skutsena, Top Teyot, said Gagarina was good moment and met to Samarat. Samdhong Rinpoche Kundungata, Odena, come chop the Mata, School Tamska, tasting the Teringata. Samdhong Rinpoche skuteng jipe sulla ngorjin song pelting de tene pot khongra na ma mangpuji ku yontan lobjong zache saskaf ma top ngata ngolo chukgi se ka tene Samdhong Rinpoche skundun ngorjin song pelting de tene gergane ma khaspa gune skundune na tene yontan lobjong zache se chirka gojuk song ka tetli de chilo chiktung biak ngapchu ngarbi na Tene pode na gyadare mak khongses bejaste kongsa labe nam den gyalwang thamcha thenba choksla tene khong tene pod phangste ngata gyagare na ji chaksa phebos ka ngata te testing ne tene gyagare dorje dan la tene khong kongsa labe nam den choksne tene khong lobjong ache geses ngata tiga ngata namses skap top top Testing the Kong Chaklas was Nata Shat demand success with Nata during his existence of some sick Kong Galopna and Nata, some sick Kong Session Kong Tongsum, Tesamayon, to Diringata Ika Kenteno Ma Shat Nat and Nata Kong Skutsena See the Toknendo, Chose Toknendo, Chichi Taxa Supa, Skutset Zadlamudio, they want a shat to chess with. Syarat sarse sampai tu kata, ye dering nampai soktu se sok ne, tenang ne tenang kata nampai soktu se nang kata, yontan ne soksu jika kata, ngaji jua pulkan langsin, Samdhong Rinpoche skundun kata iru pepste, kata ika kalau kawang salce se kata, pe angin tak pada kata tu je sesuatu. Memang pun juga ini Rinpoche skundun ini yang kata ajar se modal orang yang po, skuse ringse se modal orang yang po, yang sama lah tu je cerita cerita.
Now I'll request Ka Sonam Durjeli for the closing remarks. Kale.
His Eminent Samdhong Rinpoche, Venerable Geshe-la and Venerable monks, President Ladakh Buddhist Association, Khartoum Stanley, principals and teachers from various schools of Leh District, and dear students. We are really very fortunate to have with us the most renowned scholar, Professor Samdhong Rinpoche, and his blessings and teachings we have got this evening, this afternoon. I, on behalf of Education Committee of Ladakh Buddhist Association Leh, extend our heartfelt gratitude to His Eminent Samdhong Rinpoche. He has touched all the important points regarding the meaning and purpose of education. If we go back to the history of education in India, Rinpoche mentioned that it was Lord Macaulay who in 1935 introduced modern education in India. That time Macaulay said, we want a class of citizens in India who are Indian in blood and color, but English taste, opinion and intellect. Their main purpose were to produce more and more clerics and babus in India so that they can cut their huge budget to rule in India. So their main aim of education was to give 3 R's, that is reading, writing and arithmetic, so that they can produce more and more babus and clerks in India. Later, after 100 years, Rinpoche has also mentioned about Gandhiji. I remember in 1936 in Wardha Conference, Gandhiji stressed need to replace 3 R's by 3 H. That means head, heart and hand. In the present context, we must promote and develop bright mind, compassionate heart and skillful hand. So, taking the advantage of this platform, I must request all the teachers, principals, to disseminate your knowledge and wisdom among the budding youths. Today in Leh itself, in our schools, we are facing many challenges regarding drugs, regarding solution, regarding cool lips. So, on behalf of LBA, I request all the principals and teachers to please have a check in your schools. And I must advise all the students to keep away from these substances. because it destroys your health, it destroys the society, it destroys the community. So not taking much of time, I once again thanks His Eminent Professor Samdhong Rinpoche, Geshe-la and monks, principal and teachers, and students to spare your times and get blessing from Rinpoche-la. Thank you very, very much, Rinpoche. Thank you.
Students to remain seated and remain silent, please.